Right when I joined staff, we were out on campus. We were doing surveys trying to ask people if they were interested in joining a Bible study. Got a lot of no's, but there was a lot of excitement for it. Met a lot of people, but one guy in particular, his name was Zach, and we talked to him for a while. He seemed interested, but honestly we didn't know if we'd ever see him again. Not a believer. We had our first event. We played spike ball on campus, and he came back around. That was just the beginning of this relationship of getting to know him, hear his story, and tell him about Jesus, and tell him about why I do my job, why I think it's worth it to share the gospel with people on campus. And
so when you were first interviewing him or talking to him, he wasn't a believer? Like, what did he share about his spiritual background? Or
he really didn't grow up with much direction from family.
Okay.
I think he wouldn't consider himself like agnostic. Maybe just his family didn't talk about religion at all. He was just so interested to hear more. It was really cool to hear how the Lord was seeking him, pursuing him. His aunt had given him a Bible, like for Christmas, that same year, right after he met us. Wow. And then this guy on his hall came up to him kind of out of nowhere after they met and asked if they wanted to read the Bible together. And then we started reading the Bible together.
Did he recognize that the Lord was pursuing him, or was it more something that you had to
We pointed out man, it doesn't seem like those are coincidences. It seems like there's someone working behind the scenes and pursuing you. And he definitely realized it.
What was his response? Was that like whoa, this is a weird thing and I'm not about it? Or is it drawing so much of emotion out of him, I'm interested now, this is what's motivating me to look into it more?
Yeah, it was, I think, excitement on his part. Okay. Definitely a lot of interest, realizing that there's something more out there. There's a God that wants to know him, that's seeking him. So that just began a long process of a couple of us staff guys meeting with Zach and reading the Bible with him and talking about other religions and talking about how Christianity fits into his life. Just months and months of praying for this guy, and lots of conversations about the gospel, lots of conversations in Bible study, seeing it seemed like he was getting it, it was clicking. He really wanted to do due diligence to figure out what the message of Christianity was, what the gospel was. It wasn't like he was just willing to kind of willy-nilly put his faith in something. Yeah. I'll never forget, he looked at me and he's like, "Scott, I feel justified." Huh. And then that got my attention, and I told him, I was like, "Dude, what?" We talked about it. He was like, "I think I really do believe that Jesus was real, that he was who he says he was."
I love that he experienced this shift and the gospel lift a weight for him, and he actually experienced the transforming part of the gospel. I really connect with that, with Luz, the one I met her through evangelism as well, and it was the first week of classes, so there wasn't much work to do. So we saw her, and she was just kind of on her phone. So we went up and asked her some questions, and she was very much apprehensive at first, why are you talking to me about the Bible? Why are you wanting to know what I think about it? Very apprehensive. But I just, even in that initial invitation of there's something about these people, they care about this part of my life that I haven't really ever looked into. And I think that she's talked about how that captivated her, there's something that I didn't know people cared about this part of my life, and now I want to know, should I care about this part of my life too? And so I just I just love the idea of investigating together, wrestling through it together. And I got to watch Luz wrestle through that, and she attended our first Bible study, and it was literally presenting the gospel. And she was just so caught in this, the weight of sin. And she was my life is marred by sin. And she just felt so heavy. And I could see, from across the room, I was there's something going on. And just afterwards, she approached me and asked me, she was like, hey, before you asked me about this part of my life, and I really I can't move on from what y'all just shared about sin and how it impacts my life. She's like, can we talk about that? I was like, yes, of course we can.
Was that her recognition of her own sin? Was that like a, man, I like him seeing this in me and I'm afraid of it? Or was it more of like a, I don't really know. I mean, I feel like the gospel, there's like when we see our sin, there is like some kind of fear of ourselves and like shame and guilt that's like projected. But was that accompanied by like, man, but when I'm hearing this good news you guys are talking about, like this sin, this weight of sin feels like I know that it can be lifted off of me. Like was that already like felt?
See, at this point I didn't know.
Okay.
I just knew like you could visually see there was a huge burden on her, and she was like, I'll share at another time. Like there was a lot of women around us, so she just did not like have the space. And so we got time, like one-on-one time with her, and that's when she opened up and she was like, I just feel like, how could I ever have a relationship with God if this is actually, if this is my reality? Oh. And I was like, that's the beautiful thing. Like, we are all in this, we need a Savior. We're in deep need of a Savior. And I mean, you could visually see just like the way that the gospel lifted a heavy weight and like her received grace. And I mean, her response to it is like, I'm a new creation, guys. And she was just like rejoicing over the life-changing work of the gospel. And so it's just really sweet to even how you said, with Zach, just the visually seeing them click and seeing the beauty of, man, they've spent time and they've wrestled with it. The wrestling really makes it such a beautiful process of experiencing it in such a deeper way.
What was Luz's background spiritually?
So she's from Mexico and just moved 3 years ago. So her family, half of her family were practice Catholic, but she was never she didn't really engage with it much. It was more of just a family thing. So she didn't really know much about just the Bible or spirituality or anything, but she was just really hungering for it.
It almost seemed like she didn't even know she was hungering for it until someone brought it up and it's like, oh, maybe I should think about this sometime. That's so cool.